Right.
it's just absurd to it's this absurd double standard to be like, okay, Dirk can have a song on the Billboard chart and on the radio in rotation talking
Right.
about smoking on this man that got murdered in his community, but somebody can't make a video about the story behind a Billboard charting song. Like, it just seems like an absurd double standard. People deserve to know what they're singing along to.
And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the Shoulda Ducked video might have like 50 million views on YouTube right now and way more on Spotify, whatever. These songs are like genuinely popular. I myself have probably heard that song like fucking 40 times in my life, and not all of those times were intentional. You know, it's just like popular music. When you talk about like my FBG Cash interview, which is one thing that Joe Budden was bringing up, I think that might have like 500,000 views. I mean, it's just not the percentage of people who will watch a rap interview is very, very small in comparison to the percentage of people that will listen to rap music.
Absolutely. And, you know, for some reason, we want to just give a pass to the music for some reason and come at me or you or Ak. But like, again, I had a conversation with Van Lathan, and he kind of said to me, you know, don't you feel it's wrong that you're kind of like selling popcorn for people to gawp at this gang war? And I said, listen, the man who sold way more popcorn than me is King Von, and he was the guy doing the murders,
right?
Making songs about it, charting. You know, allegedly, you're seeing the Chicago police, all these papers have come out that this dude was murdering people in his community,
right?
Making music about it, becoming very popular, and like became a millionaire. You know what I mean? He was in O Block handing out wads of cash to people.
Right.
So, you know, it's just crazy to think like doing journalism and reporting on these things that are big stories that are going on in the world. Like, again, it's like we talk about, you know, you say, well, you know, the war in Ukraine, it's sort of on a big scale. But when you look at the beef that went on between Von and his ops, or Von and Duck, and literally dozens of people that lost their lives in this story, these are really important stories that I think people should know about.
Like, okay, the other day I was in Boston, and we were, for whatever reason, having a conversation on the live show about, you know, rappers from Boston and stuff like that. And we're talking about drill music and everything. And I said, you know, in some ways in Boston, because there is no like super popular gangster rapper, you guys are kind of getting off easy, because let's be real, if Boston had a Lil Durk, they were making killing sound cool and letting everybody know the ins and outs of the gang politics in Boston. I am oblivious to the gang politics in Boston because there hasn't been anybody making fucking killer rap music about it, right? Like, at one point, a kid asked a question to 1090 Jake about a specific like gang beef where somebody had been killed and all this shit, and they asked 1090 Jake why he didn't make a video about it, and 1090 Jake's response was basically like, I'm good friends with some of the people involved. It literally happened like around the fucking corner from where I stayed at a certain point. I didn't want to dip my toe into having a conversation on camera about some shit that was like realistically like part of my fucking life, you know? And so think about that, the fact that like Boston kind of gets off easy by not having, because realistically, if Boston was going to have a big rapper, it would be somebody like King Von, most likely, who was telling people the gory fucking details about that culture. Shout out to T-Rail, Tiny Cut in the building.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. And it puts me in a weird spot too, because one thing that kind of stands out to me that my answer doesn't necessarily seem like it's sufficient is like on that Channel 5 thing. He said at one point, he said, do you think the drill music is like good or bad for society? And I said, bad. And he's like, you know, why? Because it's literally people making songs about killing each other, and it promotes more killing of each other, etc. I can't sit here and tell you that I think that that shit is good for society. But then the question is like, well, then why do you like it so much? Why do you listen to it? Why do you fucking interview the participants? And it's kind of like, the best metaphor I could think of is like, I love the UFC. I watch it all the time. I would never want my fucking son to get involved in the UFC. I would never want my son to play football. I think it's just, you're introducing the chance of like serious head trauma to such an extent that I think it would be totally irresponsible for me to like guide my own kid into MMA. But at the same time, I fucking love watching it. At a certain point in my life, I really wanted to like get good at it, and I was doing jiu-jitsu, all this stuff. And I do think it's, of course, you know, jiu-jitsu or MMA to learn to protect yourself, I think is a great idea for a lot of people. But, you know, it's like, the fact is that UFC exists, and there are grown men that want to take part in this. And so I don't see any sort of conflict in me wanting to observe it. And so even though I think King Von should not have killed those people, and that King Von certainly should not have rapped about killing people, but I mean, as long as this this theater is taking place in the public eye, I mean, I would have to like really go out of my way to not pay attention to it, given that this is the music that I've been pretty much listening to my whole life, you know?